if you're in business, sometimes, being rock bottom is the best thing that can happen to you. A man will only change. This is the best thing in business, right? It's a cycle. When you're up, but when you're down, that's when you just have to outlast that cycle, because what will come out of that is a new you, someone who you will be forced to do things that you don't want to do, and then that's how you eventually grow and welcome those setbacks.
What's up, guys? Hey, everyone. My name is Gautam Ram. You could call me G. And my co-founder and partner, Mahesh Kyle. You could call him Kyle, Mahesh. Any other names you prefer?
That's good.
This is the Good Life Podcast, and the Good Life Podcast is basically where we interview founders, entrepreneurs, and freelancers on the stories of how they got to where they are today and what the good life means to them. And today we have Fitri Joroji of Fixcolab, CEO of Fixcolab, with us today. How are you doing, Fitri?
So, hello everybody. Mahesh, I think you should call yourself a good-looking man from the Good Life Podcast. Thanks for having me, guys. Thank you for having me. I'm excited.
Thank you for accepting our invite.
Have a conversation with you guys.
Yeah. I actually prepared a small intro just to give the viewers an idea of, Fitri and his successes. So, from dealing with a rogue client threatening to file a police report, yeah, this actually happened with Fitri, guys. So I've known Fitri for a little bit. He now actively services high-profile clients from CEOs to investment funds. He had no idea that he would find himself running a full suite website development agency at this scale when it first began. And I think it's not just website development now, it's expanded to something bigger. Definitely feel free to correct me on that after this, Fitri, so sorry for that. Without having a design or development background, Fitri self-taught himself all the necessary skills and eventually found his way to being listed as a finalist in the 2017 Malaysian Website Awards. Realizing that design served almost no purpose to the bottom line of most businesses, he made a leap. Having served the position of marketing specialist in the world's largest digital stock agency that had over 22 million monthly active users, this was a company, he was a marketing exec at a company where they were like similar unicorn status to companies like Grab, by the way. It was clear to him that marketing was the answer. Having single-handedly founded a full suite development agency that now averages contract sizes of upwards of up to 5 to 6 figures, he regularly gets invited constantly to speak on topics such as business dev, sales, development, and the like. Fitri, feel free to correct me. Tell us about how it's been, this journey, right, from 0 to 15 employees in just a matter of 2 years, and working with like public listed companies, major companies across the world. How has the journey been? Go for it, man.
Right, that was a very well elaborated intro coming from a copywriter. Thank you, Gautam. So just a little bit brief, a small brief about myself. We're not going to go through how the whole, police report thingy story, but long story short, I was a freelance WordPress website designer, website developer. Back then in my uni days, I was designing websites for an agency. I was the go-to designer and developer while I was in my dorm room, and then that gig. I never intended to do anything IT related, but somehow it's always been a dream of mine to be able to make money from the internet. At that point, I had no idea how I'm going to make the money, but when that day happened, I thought to myself, okay, this is probably something that you should pursue. But obviously, like everybody else, after graduation, I went into corporate for a few years, and then I had a close friend of mine who kept, he was there during the early days when I was all hyped up. I told him that, look, man, I'm going to one day run a business, blah, blah, blah. And every year he would check in with me and say, "Dude, have you have you left work yet? What happened to trying to run your own thing?" So at the peak of it, I just got fed up with him. Like, you know what? I'm gonna resign the very next day. So I resigned with no clear plan of what I'm gonna do, right? And I moved back to my parents. And obviously, my parents thought I was stupid because I was in corporate. I was earning good money. You know, my parents thought I was set, and I did the opposite. I moved back to them, and that was probably what 4 years ago. And fast forward 4 years later, I found myself running I call it product development agency. We are a product studio. We help companies build software applications. See, a lot of companies want to go digital these days, and usually they'll need something, a product, be it a website or an app or system, and that is where we come in to help them out. So that is what this company currently is doing. We are
Thanks for
based
that.
here in KL. We it was funny because we were incorporated during the height of COVID. It was a it was it was a scary move at that point, but I'm glad I did it. And as of today, we run a full remote team. We used to be, in the office, but after Gautam was there, it's not really an office. We rented a third floor of some shop lot, and then we
We're
all like
still
just camped there.
we're
Yep,
still pretty proper.
yep. And then about a year ago, we decided to go full remote, and then we've been full remote ever since. Our our colleagues are all in the country, Malaysia. We meet each other probably once a month, and yeah, that's a short brief about myself.
What do you think are, dude? Yeah, just as you were saying that as well, because I saw you go from like, I think at the time it was just 2 employees, was it at the time in that office? And now it's like a full-blown team, like an actual full-blown, it's a beast of its own, the company. Um, what do you think you personally, what are some things that happen and you catch yourself like, wow, I'm doing this, I'm signing this, I'm doing deals, I'm talking to people like this. Any specific moments that have occurred to you maybe in the last week, last month, that made you think like, wow, I've come so far?
Right. So, well, I get asked all the time that what was your biggest achievement so far? And my biggest achievement was that during COVID, the whole 2 years, we didn't let go anybody. We did not even reduce salary. We were paying everything. So to me, that was my biggest achievement as an owner of a business. I felt that because a lot of businesses go down under, and we were able to survive. And as of lately, things that made me feel wow, like the old me would have not imagined is being able to speak to, we operate in Malaysia. Obviously, majority of our clientele are Malaysian companies, right? Back then, our clients are just, we don't know these people, like they're just another small business owner. And now we're talking about banks, we're talking to governments, we're talking to, these people that validates that, hey, whatever you're doing is something good. And to me, that has been always a humbling experience because, I would go to this meeting with these big guys, and then knowing the history of the guys, the stuff that they've done for the country, and then here I am providing inputs for this person. And then after the whole meeting, I would just, go back to my car, and then I would just like, holy shit, what just happened? So that has been that that sort of good life moments, I would say. Like I tell my guys that, yes, guys, we are at one step. We're almost there. Like we're not there yet, but every clients that we meet is making us like it feels like we're going there. Like, one day it's going to be us. So that's the good life moments that I had so far.
One thing that made me realize as you were sharing that was you have one thing that's really that stands out about you is that I think you have this approach where it's not just a good life for you, but I think you have an emphasis on having a good life for the team members as well. What have you found are some things that maybe even surprised you, but because of this approach of like, making sure that the team is okay first, if that is the approach, it seems like that's the approach. Correct me if I'm wrong. How has that, probably made you go about your business slightly differently than what people would intuitively approach? Like, what are some things that you realize were like, yo, this is pretty interesting because you took this different approach rather than like, people would think like revenue, profit, be 10 stuff. But I realized throughout the journey, you were, if the team is okay, I'm okay. If the team is there, if the team is taken care of, the business is fine. Like, what made you do that? Like, and like anything that you found that's interesting or surprising from that approach?
Well, to that question, you see, during that COVID period, obviously things were not all smooth sailing for us. There were, months where we did not bring in that much client, and then I had to make few decisions. And what I've realized is that as long as you're transparent to your team, I pride myself to be that guy who, my majority of my staff knows how much money we're making this month, how much the deal size that we're talking, what our pipeline is looking at, from the designer all the way into our developer. They all have an overview of all those. And because of the nature that these guys are, some of them are my high school friends, and a lot of them are very, very smart people. I was considered lucky to Fix Collab was not started by me, right? Just to give you guys a little bit of context here, I started this company called Website Artisan. Basically, it's just a WordPress development agency, people, but with a small twist there. Like we were able to figure out what would make people convert, and we would do websites that actually allowed people to convert, and that sort of took off. And then COVID hit, we started getting inquiries that is beyond what WordPress is capable to do. And at that one point, I've been approached by, before COVID, I was being approached by this guy who, long story short, when I met him, it felt like I met a long lost brother. And he had this intent to form an alliance. At that point, he was like, hey, let's build a company where we pool our talents, where we put all this expertise in place and go for the bigger things. So COVID allowed me, because I know that, in business, that there'll be these cycles where you have to evolve, right? At first, you're just this one guy. And then when that cycle runs its course, prepare to be evolved to a new guy. And a lot of people, they are too romantic to their old identity that, even if there's no market there anymore, they decide to, let's just still be this dude because, I don't want to be seen jumping from one thing to another thing. But if you look at Grant Cardone, he started off as a car sales guy, and then he just teaches on sales, and then only then talks a little bit about marketing. There was a small period he becomes a marketing guy, and then he finally set his pace in real estate. See, he went through that cycle, and a lot of people are afraid to go through that cycle because a lot of it has to do with your ego, man. Because you've spent 5 years learning something, and then all of a sudden the market says, hey, this is no longer relevant. You have to start over again. So that was that moment for me. And this dude, this other co-founder of Fitri Joroji, at that point he was running a design agency, and another dude was running a full development agency. Guys were doing app, guys were doing websites, slightly more complex than what we do. And my expertise would come in the marketing aspect. I know how to sell. Thanks to Gautam, I learned how to actually increase my price. And we came together, and then that coming together required all of us to actually stay at one place. And there was this period where we were just, what do you call it, getting used to everybody, getting used to how things were working. And then obviously at that point, there were a lot of friction. But once we ironed those out, it took us 3 months to, how do you, because everybody has their own way of doing things. And now all of a sudden I went from 5 people to 15 people right away.
Yeah.
There were a lot of communication barriers. There's a lot of, different culture, different this and that. We managed to iron that out. And then we have found a fit because we were able to put people where they belong. Because, I have my project manager right now. We have 2 project manager, in-house project manager that manages all this project. One of them initially was my videographer, but I know that this dude will not bring me that much income if I were to just get him to be a video editor. So we move them around, and then until we find fit, then we know, okay, this is the guy. So that was that 2 year. We spent a good amount of time just moving people to find where there's this puzzle fit in the whole picture. And once we have that, then the engine sort of run by itself, where then I would come in just to motivate. I would have to just make the big level decisions on how we compensate people. And I'm proud to say that my guys actually earn way, way, way more than the market rate as of this year. So that is something that I'm proud of as of today. So that's, not sure whether that answers your question, but
It definitely does. I think one really cool thing from that is how you, I think it was really interesting how you focused on getting the right people in. You didn't care too much about, okay, the crazy nitty-gritty details. You knew that these people would be a great fit for the company. And then after you optimized along the way, realigned, tweaked. But what do you think? I mean, that's how it sounded to me, right? What do you think? And that process is not easy. Most people, I think many companies go through a phase where they get amazing, amazing people. They have all the money in the world to hire these people, but they are unable to allocate these these people at the right positions or the right situations where they excel. What do you think made you to just be able to go in the right direction? Whatever tweaks you made all the way to this day, what do you think was like that North Star for you? Because that's how it sounds like. And I'm like, yo, you know what? Maybe that's something like a North Star driving. Do you think that's something like that?
Well, a lot of it is just us burning money, because it's not that, when I see, there's this thing called product market fit.
Yeah.
In our company, we call it people culture fit, so that if I get the right people, the culture have to be, they agree with how we work. And then if they're in the right position, then they would actually see a different side of them. There are instances, right? There are colleagues that I have right now that initially we thought there's no hope that this guy's going to do this.
Yeah.
Because we were putting him in place where he was so uncomfortable. And then we decided to just make that one move, and now he's unstoppable. So I'm not a big proponent of, to me, my belief says that there's no such thing as a bad talent. Everybody is smart as long as you know where to place them. And as management, as a leader, your task is to, hey, don't get discouraged. Let's say if you place him here and then he sucks, then move him there and then see. And obviously that thing takes time. Like, you could be burning through 1 year, not really getting enough ROI from this one dude. But if you understand, this is the investment that I have to make in this one person to find what's his real capacity. And once I find that, dude, then you will just be blown away by what these guys can do. Once it clicks in them that, holy shit, this is what I want to do.
It really sounds like you have a super good eye on okay, when you see good talent, you're super confident, you're super positive, you know that, okay, you're going to make this work. You know that they have a position and you're able to make it happen. And I think partly of why that happens as well is like the culture within your company. Like, what are some things that, you think that you did maybe early in the business or while during the rough times? Because that's where the culture is built, right? Super early in the business. And then after that, during the crisis times is when these things actually sort of like get enforced, or maybe even other moments. But what do you think were like um, some of the things you did, or the team did? Maybe the culture was born organically that allowed this kind of like environment to be fostered within the company, to allow talent to shine, to allow, you're able to see things like that, right? It's not easy to do that in a super, super stressful, high strung situation. How are you able to see things that way, and how are you able to have a team that were able to see things the same way as you? Because from what I understand, a lot of the team members that you have came from really good positions, what a lot of people would consider positions they would never leave. Yeah, what do you think are some things that you did differently?
Well, a huge part of that. So if you ask me, there are two things I want to credit to. Number one is this other co-founder of mine. He has that gift to really get somebody to buy into his vision. Because I was one of the guy who bought into his vision, and then he went around and scout for people. And these are the people, like I said, these are people who, and back then they could have earned 2-3 times more working for other real corporate than working with us. But because we laid out the vision that, look, at the end of the day, what we're going to do, what Fixed Collab tries to be, is to be one of the big companies that, how people get Malaysians, when people say I work with Petronas, there's certain pride about working with this big conglomerate. And I want to be able to create a company that when somebody says I work with Fixed Collab, that feeling of wow, like that's where the vision is. Like, it's not so much on trying to be a $1 billion company,
Wow.
whatever, blah blah blah. But I want to be that guy who, when you put on that lanyard that says I'm a Fixed Collab employee, there's some sort of pride that goes in there. And that obviously is the vision. And what we do on a daily basis is I practice transparency with people. When I don't feel like it, I tell my guys, hey guys, I'm not feeling like it. I will actually vent out to them. I treat these guys as friends, right? And me being vulnerable, me being very frank about things with them, allowed them to feel secure and allowed them to actually express themselves. So when my guys are having tough times, they're not really feeling it, it's easy for them to have a conversation with me that says, hey dude, I'm struggling with this, blah blah blah, this and that. And me being me, because this can be a bad, it's I have a huge empathy for people. Even if you're struggling, even if you did something bad to me, I will always have this thought that, hey, probably because he's just having a bad day, I'll brush it off, right?
Yeah.
And that has been a factor that has bring more good than bad, because there are people say that when you have to fire fast, right? And I give second chances to people. I will tell them, look, like, obviously we fired a lot of people before. Like, there are guys that did not fit our culture, we fired them, we let them go. But these guys that I know, because I always ask them, dude, why bother stay if you know that you can make 3-4 times more outside of this company? That's the real conversation that I have with them. And on a daily basis, I would share things with them. Gautam probably was there back then, where that I would go into this. I call it our daily sync up, where I would actually, as a leader, you have to constantly be motivating people. And that was something that we do consciously on a daily basis. And I'll be able to kind of just tell people from, this is probably a skill or a gift that I have. I'll be able to tell people that, look, I know that something is off with you, then I'll be able to have the conversation. I'll be able to fix that fast before, you know, shit goes sideways or shit goes.
Everywhere.
Yep, I'm
Dude,
that guy. I know that. I know that if there's something wrong, I would address that right away before that things explode into something bigger.
one thing I realized that you've been able to successfully do what it sounds like. It's like you've been able to gift the employees that you have, the team members, the partners, a good life as well. People spend a lot of time at work, and I think part of what that you'll be doing with the culture, how you approach these things, everything that you just shared, I feel like that definitely contributes to a lot of your teams, their perspective of the lifestyle, whatever it may be. You cannot run away from work being a part of it. Um, and yeah, I think that's really cool. What do you think? Like, how's your just to be transparent, we have like 8 minutes left. Um, but like, yeah, let's end it on a really cool like wrap up. So just a nice full circle. What is your personal perspective of a good life? Personally, maybe it has to do with work. Feel free to share your thoughts.
Right. Well, I'm not gonna lie. There are days where I feel like, dude, I'm doubting whatever I do. I think we as human, we we go through cycles, right?
Yeah.
And what I found to be my definition of a good life is being able to do good to people, because you know that's I there are moments where I took home quite a bit of money and I just don't find that, yes, like money is interesting, but you can do a lot of things with that, but it doesn't really give me that long lasting bliss to say. And to me, what defines a good life to me is if I can directly impact my guy's life, like because of the company he's now is able to get married, because of the company is now able to go for a holiday. And the cool thing about us is we have an unlimited leave policy, and there are guys that once they make a lot of money, they'll go like, okay, I want to go off for 15 days, 20 days, a month. And I would actually allow that because I know that, hey, I have full trust in you. Come back when you want to come back. Don't worry about work. Go enjoy time with your family. And knowing that they're able to do that gives me that sense of bliss that makes me feel validated that, look, all this pressure that you go through, all these challenges that you go through is going to be worth it because someone, because of you, someone else is having a good life. And I feel that that's the best way for me to build this huge karma container, whatever you call it, that will eventually come back to me the once the time is right, right? Because, dude, like when I tell my mom that I pay this much in salary, she was in disbelief. She's like, "Holy shit! Like, dude, why? Like, dude, what the hell? Like." And that same amount of salary can also, I mean, I could just be that guy who, keep the team to 4 guys and then just
Yeah.
eat all the
Take up
money and drive
all that
nice
margin.
cars.
Yeah.
Correct. Take out all the margin, drive in all the nice cars, post on Instagram, flex my supercar and whatsoever, and be proud. But to me, maybe I want to do that, but I feel that I want to do that. I want to be able to do that at one point where, if I want to buy my car, I don't have to worry about paying that for the rest. I don't have to worry about splurging. I don't have to worry about, because this is what I realized, the difference between the wealthy and the rich is the wealthy can burn money and not feel any remorse about it because money is generated from an asset, where the rich will think that they have money they go and spend that thing, and
Yep.
then once the money is not longer there, they will feel that slight pressure, and then they will have to push themselves again. And then that cycle just never ends. It's just
Yeah.
that your expenses gets higher and higher. And to me, I am fortunate enough to be surrounded by people who are way more successful than I am, and seeing how happy these guys are without the material aspect of things makes me realize that, oh wow, like I want to be like this at one point. But I'm not gonna lie, yes, the material stuff will come, but to me, the definition of good life is being able to impact one's life forever. Like if I die,
Yeah.
there'll be people who will tell me that, "Dude, because of this guy, I'm able to do this." He will tell his son, okay, let's see if I have a kid, I don't have a kid yet. If I have a kid, the guy would really be able to tell my kid that your dad did this, and thanks to him, I was able to do that. And that was when I know that, okay, I had a good life and I can die peacefully.
Freaking pure, what they call it? Facts. Yeah, big facts. Spitting facts.
True.
Man. Yeah, I think a big part of that is like quality of life. I think that's why we chose the word also like good life, because what people don't realize is like, I think you and I and even Mahesh, like we've come across this kind of people, successful people, people of money, and there's a very clear difference between people who they've gotten the material side down, but they call it empty. Like they feel like empty, like that. As cheesy as that sounds, it's a real fact. And there's also the idea like, okay, what if you're not there yet? Like the journey there, are you going to like, if it's so dependent on material stuff, like number one, there's always a higher step. There's always someone making more than you, pricier than you, more cars than you. And also on the other level, like, okay, sure, material things give you happiness, you think, and then while getting there, what if it takes up your whole life, right? What if it takes up 3/4 of your whole life? Then is it really worth it? Is that really a proper, like a okay definition to run your whole life by? So like interesting questions to bring up that we realized early, thankfully. So like, yeah, that's one thing I think like anyone who's not used to the space and they come and listen to podcasts like this, they hear stories like this, I think one thing they might be surprised by is like, where is he talking about, where can I close 10K deals, 50K deals, or like how to spend this money properly? Where's all this talk? Why is he talking about that? None, nothing, right? Sure, part of your happiness comes from that, but like, yeah, I think that's one thing I also learned from you, Fitri, a lot, because I've seen those tough times. I've been there. I was there. It was, I mean, at the we were for context, we were staying the place where they had their office. Not to go into too much detail, but I was nearby there. I happened to be at the same location when the team was growing during COVID, and it's just pure disbelief to just see how they're able to not just pull through, they're thriving. Like compared to how many other companies were doing, they were thriving. So super incredible to have known you, Fitri. We have less than a minute left. Thank you so much. Really appreciate your time. Thank you so much for coming across and sharing your story with us. Any last words?
Nothing much, man. If you're in business, sometimes, being rock bottom is the best thing that can happen to you. A man will only change. This is the best thing in business, right? It's a cycle. When you're up, but when you're down, that's when you just have to outlast that cycle, because what will come out of that is a new you, someone who you will be forced to do things that you don't want to do, and then that's how you eventually grow and welcome those setbacks. I always tell Gautam this, like, just hang on. Like if you're having it rough, just hang on. Good times will come.